Board special meeting for Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. On September 15th, 2025, notice was sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger, filed with the clerk of the Township of Bridgewater, and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Please be aware of the Planning Board policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. Hearing assistance is available upon request. Accommodations will be made with individuals with a disability pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, provided the individual with the disability provides 48 hours advance notice to the Planning Department Secretary before the public meeting. However, if the individual should require special equipment or services, such as a CART transcriber, 7 days advance notice, excluding weekends and holidays, may be necessary. I would ask everyone to please rise to salute the flag. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Probst, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Atkins,
Here.
Mr. Chowdhury, Ms. Chartowich is absent for the record. Mr. Banga. Here. Ms. Sakura. Here. Mr. Wang.
Here.
Mr. Magora.
Here.
Mr. Pappas.
Here.
Councilman Kirsch.
Yes, here.
Mayor Mensch. Here. Chairman Vesio.
Here.
For the record, Bill Burr, Board Engineer, is present. Catherine Sarmed, Board Planner, present. And Katie Fina will be substituting in for Mark Peck this evening, Board Attorney. You have a quorum, you can proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Probst. I'd like to hand the mic over to Councilman Kirsch quickly.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick personal matter of personal indulgence. I'm wearing an eye patch because I am recovering from retina surgery. At some point, I may switch to sunglasses, and I may need to step away. I'm going to make it through the best I can because, I do understand the critical importance of the master plan and the business we're doing tonight.
Thank you, Councilman Kirsch. Good evening, members of the public. At this point, I'd like to address any members of the public that would like to wish or like to address the board on any matter that's not listed on tonight's agenda, meaning the master plan. Please feel free to come to the podium at this time. Good evening. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Adams, and my address, well, I have two addresses. One of them is in Bridgewater, of course, and that is at 4 Hudson Street in Bridgewater.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Adams. Proceed.
Thank you. So my concern that I would like to have addressed, and I'm here with my husband, Monroe Adams. I have been a resident of Bridgewater, my family, probably for 4 generations now. That house has been there over 90-something years. And of course, we love it there. Our daughter is there now. And I have been trying to get a road issue addressed for the last 3 years. I've talked to the mayor's office. I've talked to, I want to say it's like OCR. I've talked to Public Works. I've gone down to Public Works. And we have a hazard in the road. So when it rains or when it snows, the water fills up probably about this high. And when it freezes, it is a hazard. People have fallen there. The water kind of doesn't drain. I think there was pipes or something probably underneath over the years, and those pipes have been corroded. So I think someone actually came out to take a look at it. I want to say his name was Russell Murdoch. And he came out with a group of people to actually look at it, and they said that there was some corrosion with the pipes that went out to Monmouth Avenue, and they would actually put us on the list. And so I think we've been on the list now about 3 years or so. And so I'm here to find out when can we actually get that taken care of? Because it is a hazard.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ms. Adams, for coming to address the board this evening. We do have our engineer in the house this evening. That's Bill Burr. And perhaps we could shed a little light on Ms. Adams' issue.
Is it on? Oh, here we go. So this is the first time that I'm hearing about a very specific drainage problem on Hudson. It's been a roadway that's been on our list to monitor, and when appropriate, when we can fit it into our road program, we'd like to do that. But in light of the information that I'm hearing tonight, we can certainly take a closer look at that. I suspect it may have been was it Tyson Murdoch?
Tyson?
Is it
Okay.
Tyson? Murdoch.
It's Tyson.
It was
It's a
probably
Murdoch.
Tyson from Public Works.
Okay,
May have visited the site. I'll certainly talk to the engineering staff tomorrow. We can circle around with Public Works and see what the nature of their investigation was.
okay.
And the best I can say is that we'll look into it and we can get back to you guys.
I
Yeah, Ms.
appreciate that.
Yeah, Ms. Adams, this is, I mentioned I'm the mayor here in Bridgewater, and yeah, I was just talking to Mr. Pappas. This has not gotten its way up to our, so in terms of, this is the first I've heard about it, for Mr. Pappas has heard about it. So I can't obviously then speak to the merits of, or the issue of what you're saying specifically, but I can guarantee you is that Mr. Burr, Mr. Pappas will, talk to our folks in-house, see what information we already have, and then we will make sure that we get back out, take a look at it, get up, I'll make sure I get an update. I don't want to overpromise, underdeliver, so I don't know what the result of that will be, but we will certainly be in communication with you. So at least you know. I don't want to promise you we'll be magically fixed tomorrow, but that way you know that it has gotten to us. We are looking at it, and then we'll let you know kind of what the action plan is or a realistic timeline for addressing it. Okay?
I do appreciate that. And you may know some of my family who was a resident there, born and raised there. Robert Bryant. Does anybody know Robert Bryant or the Bryant family? That's my maiden name.
Okay.
And so we've been there a long time, been paying taxes there for, over 90 years.
Yeah.
And so we
appreciate it.
really do appreciate, I thank you for the contact. I did call your office. I did speak to somebody there.
Yeah, no, you may have talked to some of the office, but sometimes, depending on what the issue is, obviously, not everything winds up
Not everything.
on the desk. So
I understand.
But when residents come to meetings and stuff, obviously, and raise a concern that we don't have an immediate answer to, I like to know what it is and why. And so we'll look at it. We'll get back to you.
I appreciate it, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak.
May I just suggest if you could put down a telephone number confidentially, won't be disclosed on the sign-in sheet, just so that there's a way to get back in touch with you quickly?
I've asked Ms. Adams to send me her contact.
Okay, as long as you guys have a way to get in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Once
you.
again, Ms. Adams, thank you very much.
Good evening, Kathy Franco. I live at Block 816, Lot 10.02. It's nice to see you here, Mayor Mensch, because you've been relatively absent at planning board meetings. Back in August, I had handed a list of meetings that have been held since 2020, where minutes were not available on the website. I gave that to the secretary. I'm going to hand this to you, Mr. Vesio. There were 2 meetings from 2020 that meeting minutes are not available, 2 from 2021, 1 from 2022, 5 from 2023, 4 from 2024, and during 2024, it included both Graymark and Ethicon properties, and 5 from 2025 so far. So I would hope that, I think this planning board has been pretty stable, but as a board member of boards that I sit on, I expect minutes. And as a member of the public, I expect minutes to meetings. I don't want to have to go back and try and find recordings or ask for recordings and listen to things. I want to be able to find that information. So I would appreciate it if this planning board could try to move the approval of these minutes along.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this was raised at a recent meeting, and I did go back and check with staff. The board, both land use board minutes are pretty much up to date. They may not be on the website, but they've all been reviewed and approved by the respective boards. So if you have specific minutes that you're interested in, Ms. Franco.
I will Oprah them. I will put in an Oprah request tomorrow, and I expect it not to take even 10 days to receive those minutes. Thank you.
I just want to make clear, just because something is not on the website does not mean the board has not reviewed and approved the minutes. So
Okay, so when I Oprah
you
it,
inferred that, and that's not accurate.
what I said is they are not on the website. They're not available for public, review without requesting an Oprah, which puts additional burden upon the staff of this township to go through Oprah requests. Correct? Okay, so wouldn't it be more beneficial to the entire community to make sure that these I don't expect the last 2 or 3 to be there, but there's 19 sets of minutes dating back to 2020 that are not available readily on the website. And if you could make them available on the website, then other people besides myself will not have to Oprah them. Thank you very much. I know you're going to get into the master plan.
That's correct.
I don't know if this is the time to explain the process of the master plan, or if that will be
Unfortunately,
during
would
the
not be the
open
time.
public hearing section of that.
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I think whoever was here before might have taken the sign-in sheet. Okay.
Okay, moving along. As the agenda states this evening, this is a special meeting, which we do have from time to time. However, tonight's meeting is truly special to this planning board body, as it will hold a hearing on the very document that guides this board's principles, the Bridgewater Township Master Plan. We are joined by participants in this room with us this evening that have been critical to the process throughout the years. And at this time, I'd like to call on Mayor Matthew Mensch to perhaps share a few words of introduction to this process.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say it was special because I haven't been here in a while and everyone's happy to see me. So before I talk about the master plan, I do want to take the opportunity just to thank all of you for all the work that you do on this board. Our boards are known, in and out of town as being very professional, well-prepared boards who, ask questions, work through the process, and do a lot to protect our town and to make sure that what gets approved is appropriate and what gets rejected has a proper record before it. So I just want to thank all of you for all the work that you do every week, every month that you're here, and it's appreciated. And when I'm talking to residents, everybody always compliments our boards and our planning board. So I just want to take the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to share that. Turning to the master plan, this has been a project that has been in the works for several years, and has really been a team effort. I have a few comments specifically, but I want to start with recognizing that this started under the stewardship of Scarlett Doyle, who is here with us today, and has been a lot of the good that is here in Bridgewater is because of her work for decades, implementing the vision of the elected officials, and at the same time also keeping out a lot of the bad. She can't always keep all the elected officials in line, but she tries very hard, and she did when she was here, and was masterful at managing the people, the personalities, to make sure that our town is protected. So thank you, Scarlett. And Scarlett, if you want to say a few words, you don't have to, but if you would like to say a few words, I'd... when you're ready, yeah. Come, please, speak.
For those members that are not familiar with me, my name is Scarlett Doyle, and I have been was the planner for almost 25 years. The master plan began Actually, we have had many, many iterations of the master plan, amendments to elements. But one of the first addresses that Mayor Mensch had was a focus, a concentration on the master plan. And as we know with Mayor Mensch, when he mentions that he wants something, we know he wants it. So I immediately got on to developing the master plan. When that plan was prepared, the interesting fact is that the first element of review was with planning board members, Mr. Pappas and the mayor. For weeks on end, we went through the master plan draft, page by page. They made revisions as necessary. I prepared those revisions, submitted them to Mr. Pappas. He in turn looked at them to see if they met the intent of the two of them, and we moved on. The purpose of this master plan that you're going to be reviewing is to have a single document. Mayor Mensch made it clear, although yes, we did have many iterations and many amendments, he wanted a single document to have for the consistency of review by the township. Now, we went through, as I said, we went through the whole document with the planning board membership of Mr. Pappas and Mr. Mensch, Mayor Mensch. And then that wasn't enough, so Mayor Mensch then decided to appoint an ad hoc committee. That committee was comprised of councilmatic representative, including Councilman Kirsch, and planning board members, as well as zoning board members, because we know that the zoning board gives their annual review, and that annual review oftentimes has recommendations for zoning changes. So it was very appropriate for all three elements to be included in that review process. We met for weeks. Every single week we went through the master plan, again, page by page. The ad hoc committee gave their revisions, their alterations, their refinements. Those changes were accomplished by Mr. Winiger, Wells Winiger. He made those changes. He in turn emailed the changes to the members of the committee to be assured that what he was saying in the master plan truly tracked their intent. After that, I retired in 2023, and at that point, our new planner, Catherine, was appointed, and she has taken charge of the master plan. If there's any questions, please give them to me, but I want to tell you that there was an enormous amount of work, enormous amount of dedication from the zoning board and the planning board members that for weeks went through the master plan and debated and refined and really cared about it. So I want you to know that it was done with due diligence, and it's before you tonight under the tutelage and the corrections and the modifications done by Catherine, and it's for your action this evening. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Scarlett, and thank you for all your work. And that was something that as soon as I took office, Scarlett began working on. At first it was, as Scarlett mentioned, it was just Scarlett doing initial review with and then including Mike, and then we've expanded, and I remember sitting around and it was me, Mike, and Scarlett, and sit there and said, well, this is great, but we need to make sure we have other input because it's the board members, it's all of you and all of our zoning board members who are going to be looking at that. So so this has gone through an extensive internal review, like we said, with our professionals, then with me and Mike, then with our expanded ad hoc committee consisting of all those members. And for those of you who assisted with that, thank you. Because there was a lot of work that went in to doing that. And there's also been a lot of public outreach to make sure that, again, it's not just done by us, but there was a video series that we did about the master plan in August through October of 2023. We had online input where we received feedback in November, December of 23, again in May and June of 2024. We had a public workshop And of course, residents share various input just off, off cycle whenever they have, an opinion or something on it. So what we have here reflects an enormous amount of work by a lot of people. And it's something that we're very proud of. I do want to take a particular note is for our council liaisons and obviously my running mates run the same cycle, but Councilman Kirsch and Councilman Ring have done an extraordinary amount of work, obviously with their time here on the council on this issue as members of the various boards and liaisons. So they have a lot of input too. So with all of that, I know that Catherine has a presentation. I do not want to step on your toes too much with it. I do just want to remind, I know you're going to hit on this again, but this is really important, but it's not the be-all and end-all of land use in the sense of this sets the roadmap for the future, but applicants, it's not, this is what applicants, as you all know, come in front of and then measure against whether it's consistent, not consistent. It doesn't guarantee something's approved. It doesn't guarantee something's denied, but it sets forth our vision as to where we believe uses are appropriate and how that should be handled. With the hope, we can't stop development in its entirety. We can't put a moratorium that nobody can build anything in Bridgewater, and we don't want to do that. We want we want an economically viable and town. We want new businesses to come in and expand. We just want to make sure they're not doing it in the middle of a residential neighborhood, which disrupts the use of the enjoyment and the quality of life of our residents. So that is what this is intended to be, and we're very proud of it. And Catherine has, as Scarlett mentioned, we started out with Scarlett doing the legwork and passing it off to Catherine. Catherine has been a tremendous asset to the township in her time as our planner. I can't say enough good things about Catherine and the job she has done, not just on the master plan, but on all of her applications. So it's really been phenomenal working with you. Thank you for your work on this. Bill does some good stuff too, but this is, I don't want to leave Bill out of the accolades, but from a planning perspective, it's been phenomenal. And last, I note that our good friend John Kulak is here in the audience as one of our Board of Adjustment members and a very diligent land use, I won't call you a land use hawk, but somebody who pays very much attention as to what's going on in town and advocates for the town on the board and as a citizen. So thank you, John, for your work. So with that, I turn it over to Catherine, Chairman, however we go.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mensch, and also thank you to the Planning Board, members of the Township Council, members of the other boards that are present here tonight, and members of the public for attending this meeting. I also want to thank Scarlett Doyle. I would be remiss if I didn't include her in the gratitude for the foundation that was built not only in this document itself, but in the years of planning that got us to this document. So what this document works off of is many, many years of tremendous planning efforts that have kept Bridgewater beautiful, and this master plan intends to keep that tradition alive. As just a matter of how I plan to go through this, I prepared a short PowerPoint presentation to help guide the presentation, and just some kind of high points of what that will include. I will provide some acknowledgments for the plan, include how the master plan process is laid out. I know you've heard from Mayor Mensch and Scarlett about how that has gone to date, and then explain a little bit about what is a master plan, who adopts a master plan, why is a master plan important, kind of like a 101 of master plan, and then specifically what does this master plan include, and go over some of the elements of the master plan. So just to start, the Township Council, the Township Planning Board, and the Ad hoc Committee have all been crucial to getting this document to where it is and before the board this evening. I also just wanted to note there are members of the Ad hoc Committee that started this process that are no longer on the Ad hoc Committee, Wells Winiger, Lauren Zarrow, Scarlett Doyle, but for the members that continued to be part of that, that ad hoc committee and all the work that was put in is greatly appreciated. The township also wants to thank, this was not just a process that was done with those groups, staff, professionals, the administration, everyone put in a lot of time and effort and had input and assistance in preparing this master plan. And I also want to thank the residents who have participated in this process through the online survey, workshop meetings that have all provided valuable feedback to this master plan. So the master plan process, as you've heard, has been going on for several years. And during this time, the township has worked with professionals and staff to evaluate existing conditions, has created an ad hoc committee comprised of members of boards, professionals, and township council members, issued a series of videos on master plan topic areas, and released a survey to the public, and also had a public input session. All this feedback has helped to shape the overall master plan. So the master plan video series was held from August to October 2023. There was a series of videos that are all available on the township website still to this day. These were all aimed at providing the public with background and information about the master plan that would provide the foundation for future questions and feedback and the appropriate ability to have input in the survey with the knowledge of what was from these video series. Thereafter, a survey was released to the public online in the months of November and December in 2023. It was thereafter reopened after the public workshop that was held in May 2024. And the master plan workshop was held here in this room in May of last year. It included an interactive process that had a number of stations with different topic areas for the master plan that represented the different elements, and feedback was provided by people who participated through sticky notes and kind of these circle stickers, dot stickers to help upvote certain recommendations. So all that feedback was included. So the master plan history in Bridgewater shows that the last comprehensive master plan, so one master plan, was adopted in 1990. However, that doesn't include everything that has been done, and planning has continued in various ways. As Scarlett mentioned, at least 17 master plan re-exam reports, amendments, and elements have been conducted since that time. And I say at least because there's probably more that I missed on my list, but that's quite a bit. And so, as I mentioned before, this master plan builds upon decades of tremendous planning efforts that the township has undertaken, and there hasn't been a 35-year gap in planning. All of those amendments and reexamination reports help to guide the township. So a master plan is seen as a long-term vision for the development of the community, and it utilizes an analysis of existing and projected conditions. This is a planning document and a policy guide to help create a vision of what communities want to look like in the future. It's not a legal document. It doesn't codify into the township code anything. It simply makes recommendations to inform policymaking from the governing body. So all the recommendations you see do not automatically become law. They still have to go through a process of becoming an ordinance. These are just recommendations to help guide the township governing body. This is a central document that's going to capture all that analysis and visioning, and it also has different elements that provide policy direction for things like land use, community facilities, circulation, and other needs. And in New Jersey, the master plan has to be reexamined every 10 years, which we've met that in the township. A master plan must include two specific elements, including a land use element and a housing element and fair share plan by law. All of the other elements are optional pursuant to the municipal land use law. However, there is one additional element that has been added as a requirement as of law in 2021, which is called a climate change related hazard and vulnerability assessment, which is required to be included in a master plan anytime the land use element is updated, of which this document does include. Who adopts a master plan? So the planning board has the sole power to adopt a master plan document. So it's a big responsibility for this board. A master plan is presented at a hearing like tonight and voted on for adoption. And then thereafter, this is a township document, and the council can adopt zoning ordinances as well as zoning ordinances or strategies, policies, or budgetary allocations in the future, all to be consistent with this master plan. Why is a master plan important? In New Jersey, we have home rule, which allows all municipalities to self-regulate in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare through the adoption and enforcement of a master plan and local planning ordinances. Usually, we associate these ordinances with quality of life management. So these rules are intended to preserve the quality of life for residents, businesses, and visitors alike. And so it's a fundamental building block of quality of life in Bridgewater Township. It serves as a blueprint for current conditions. It guides future growth, transformation, and development through a consistent framework. It also forms the legal foundation for the zoning ordinance and the zoning map, and the MLUL, the Municipal Land Use Law, requires that a master plan has to be prepared for municipalities to continue to have the right to zone. This is important because the land use ordinances and any new redevelopment plans also should be consistent with the master plan, and every variance request you see before a board should also show that there's consistency with the intent and purpose of the master plan. So this will guide land use decisions in the future as well. So the Bridgewater Township vision that's included in the master plan is short and sweet. The township should control development, limit density, protect, enhance, and acquire open space, and actively pursue opportunities to enhance the health, safety, and quality of life for Bridgewater's residents and visitors. Specifically, this master plan includes an introduction section that talks about Bridgewater Township, the context of where it's located, and also some information about the regional center and goals of the regional center, where Bridgewater is a part of. The second section includes a number of goals and objectives. So it includes that visioning statement. It includes a number of goals and objectives that are the guiding principles that create that overall vision. And then there are also topic area like land use goals, circulation element goals, et cetera, that are listed in there. These are not just important to the overall vision, but they are important for future ordinances, land use applications that may need to demonstrate consistency with the master plan and its goals and objectives. This master plan and the bulk of it includes 9 separate elements: a land use element, a conservation plan element, a circulation plan element, community facilities plan element, water and sewer utility services plan element, a sewer preservation plan, a recycling plan, a farmland preservation plan, and a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment. The housing element and fair share plan and the open space and recreation plan element were both prepared separately by separate consultants. They are still concurrent pieces to this master plan. The housing element was adopted in June 2025 by the planning board. The open space and recreation plan has not yet been adopted, but it has been prepared. There was a workshop held in 2024, and that will likely be before this board shortly. These elements, I like to see them as maybe volumes or chapters of a master plan that focus on specific topic areas and provide more detailed information and recommendations for those topic areas. Each master plan element within this document is structured to include information, current trends, and a section on the recommendations related to that topic area at the rear of each of the elements. These recommendations are important because they may be utilized by the Township Council to adopt legislative changes to the Township Code and also establish those strategies, policies, budgetary allocations, and roadmaps for the future. I'm going to briefly go through what each of these elements focus on, so I'll just kind of scroll through those. A land use plan element is one of the required elements of a municipal master plan. This is the fundamental plan. It establishes policies and goals for future development. It outlines the appropriate location, type, intensity, and density of land uses, like residential, commercial, and agricultural areas. It also provides a long-term vision for physical growth, balances competing priorities, and serves as the basis for the zoning ordinances to guide community development and protect resources. The conservation plan element is an optional element to a master plan. This provides a framework for municipalities to preserve and manage their natural resources, such as open space, forests, wetlands, water, and wildlife. It details how a municipality will coordinate development and resource use to protect environmental features and promote the health and welfare of the community. The circulation plan element is also optional. It is something that the township uses to guide future decisions on transportation, circulation, and mobility-related issues. And this also helps to provide decision makers like the governing body with priorities of where to direct funding or seek out grants as they become available. The community facilities plan is also optional. It identifies existing public and quasi-public facilities, assesses their adequacy for the community, proposes recommendations for their future location, type, and maintenance. This includes things like schools, libraries, fire and police station, and emergency services, parks, government buildings, and in this document includes an overview of all the different divisions and departments within the municipality that operate. The water and sewer utility services plan element is also optional. This talks about the existing and planned infrastructure for public water, wastewater, and stormwater management systems. Historic preservation element is also optional. The municipal land use law describes this plan as a plan that indicates the location and significance of historic sites and districts, identifies the standards used to assess worthiness for historic site or district identification, analyzes the impact of each component and element of the master plan on the preservation of historic sites and district. It's also intended to guide land use decisions, provide the basis for addressing historic preservation issues. The recycling plan element, also optional, is an element that will outline how a municipality will meet state recycling goals by incorporating provisions for the collection, disposition, and recycling of designated materials. A farmland preservation plan, it's also optional, outlines a strategy to protect agricultural land in a municipality. And the climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment, which is the new requirement to a municipality's master plan. This is a little different because it includes a bit of more of an analysis than other elements have previously required, including exposure to weather-related hazards, sensitivity and vulnerability to these hazards, and an ability to adapt to them. It also provides some recommendations for resilience strategies to reduce risks, protect infrastructure, and enhance the quality of life. So that concludes kind of the overview of the master plan. Obviously, this is a very, very, very detailed document. There are some sections like the land use element that have pages and pages of recommendations that range from things for ordinance consistency and language to specific quality of life issues like lighting or stormwater or invasive species. And so I'm not going to go through all of those things, but there are a number of recommendations. Some of those recommendations came directly from the staff and professionals who deal with the land use ordinances, like the zoning officer, like the engineering department, and municipal services. And so many of those recommendations come from actual experience with working with the ordinances. And so I'm not going to go through all of them. I just will also note that despite all of the eyes on this document, all of the people that have contributed to it, there is 180 so pages of text, and there are some typographical edits to the document. I do have a list of them. I won't, if it's too cumbersome, I won't go through the whole thing with the board, but I did just want to note that there are some typographical edits, spaces between words, you know, a number missing, something like that. The only change, and I checked with our board attorney this evening, there is a section on page 8 under the historic plan that includes the Bulmer farmhouse, and there is just one tidbit of information that I was provided that apparently the ad hoc committee had gone through, and it just lost in translation on its way here. But there are some very interesting readouts and canons that were more than just cannons, more complex than that were near the Middlebrook encampment that should be included under the Bulmer Farm section under H8, page H8, It's not material, it doesn't change anything, it's just informational in nature, and it's very interesting fact, and I appreciate Mr. Chairman Vesio and Mr. Kulak for bringing this to my attention. It is the only one in New Jersey. So it's a Revolutionary War artifact, essentially, and it should be included under that historical section because it is very important. But again, it's just a descriptor sentence. It's not going to materially change. It's not making any recommendations within the master plan. But I just thought I'd make the board aware that there are just some cleanup edits that need to be done to finalize this document. Other than that, I would welcome any questions, commentary from the board members.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sarmed, for that comprehensive review. At this time, I do wish to open this up to our planning board members. We have seen this document, and curious to hear if there are any questions or comments for Ms. Sarmed.
Comment I will make is that, as we discussed, some of the items that are in here are required. So there's certain things that, we've addressed them as terms of, Bridgewater's vision, but as we all know, you have to do affordable housing. It's not an option. The state requires certain other, issues throughout the document that state law we have to comply with. So we do, but we've made sure that on everything that can be done, that's really making sure it fits Bridgewater and not anything that's just kind of cookie cut and put in. And again, thank you all the members of this board for your input on this, and thank you, Catherine, and your team, and Scarlett, and everything that we've done. So I don't have any questions. This is my comment.
Mr. Chairman, a few brief comments. First, I think it's important to set context. Bridgewater is an exceptionally well-planned community. It's historic in places. We have, many neighborhoods that even predate zoning. But overall, Bridgewater kind of makes sense. You generally speaking know where things are going to be, and they are where you generally expect them. That didn't happen by accident. That happened through a commitment over many years to good planning principles and strong execution. And certainly, Scarlett Doyle for, a 25-year period was a person that was largely or significantly responsible for that, along with others. Also bears noting, though, that changes to the face of Bridgewater are never taken lightly. That means a planning board hearing, a zoning board hearing, this process. Those of us who are in positions of authority to make those changes need to do them very carefully and very diligently. In my case, that's been through service on the zoning board, now in council, planning board. I want to acknowledge, though, that another council member who sat, whether it was in this chair or maybe one of the others, Tim Ring, had a significant impact. We generally move the liaison responsibility every couple of years, so I was on 2020 and 21. He was then on 22, 23. So during that time, I know he took that responsibility very seriously, and his fingerprints are on this document in a very positive way. Just want to add my accolades, to everyone who's been involved, and acknowledge that this has been a transparent process with considerable opportunity for public input. We continue to be open and transparent. We are all in our own way accessible, whether out at public events. In my case, my email address is readily available. My publicly available phone number is and has been used. And certainly, as Catherine, as you pointed out, this is not the end of the process. It's an important milestone of the process. But as Bridgewater continues to evolve, this is a very important milestone. But the conversation continues.
That's actually a question. Just one thing to point out, which is this document can be amended in the future, correct? So whether if it's a very lengthy document, it's gone through an enormous review, but if at some point in time something gets brought to our attention and we say, you know what, we want to rethink something, or we want to add an element or add something there, that can be done, correct?
Yes, and I like to think, and I apologize for not mentioning this. I like to think of a master plan as a living, breathing document. It's not something that should sit on a shelf. It's something that should be looked at all the time. And if there's something that doesn't align, or there's something new that happens, there's something more modern that comes out, then we should absolutely utilize the opportunity to amend it. And it's not insulated from being amended.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I wasn't necessarily talking about an amendment so much as the conversation
Yeah,
continues.
no, but I think it's important, though, for the public to understand that even though you have to do this every 10 years, that when the board considers this document, this is not now set in stone forever. This is now the Bible for the next 10 years. It can't be changed. It can't be amended. This is a document that, as we've done before, sometimes you have to update. You update the transportation element because you want to, address something, or new law comes in, or something. So this is the kind of thing where this is the overarching guiding document, and this is the first time in a while we've done a comprehensive review of this magnitude. While we've done it in the past in order to comply with statutory requirements, it has not been, we have not gone through literally sentence by sentence, word by word, every piece of this document. And that's why this particular one is so significant. But that said, there's always opportunities as we go forward, and the township evolves, the law evolves, the policy evolves, to go back and make sure that it continues to be tightened up. If there's anything that we look at and say, we want to address further, then we have that opportunity. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Councilman Kirsch. Any other comments or questions?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. This is actually a comprehensive document. And thanks for all the effort that you put and everybody else put. I was going through a lot of roads and, alternative arrangement like a bicycles and pedestrian, all those things. But I did not see anything on how we're going to at least reduce the traffic problem. I know traffic problem is not easy to reduce it. Have you thought about it for other alternative way that people can actually move back and forth? If you look at any of the Bridgewater roads, which may be a good problem actually, any 3 miles, it takes about 15 minutes time to, in the morning and afternoon, it travels about that much of time. Obviously, it depends upon all the different active element, like, housing element and all those things, which Bridgewater, like, Councilman Carr says, Bridgewater actually has done a tremendously good job by limiting the expense of the residents to the limit, actually. But still, there's always a problem coming up in the morning and afternoon. Anything that is a mandatory to address in a master plan, how to actually affect the traffic situations with alternate transportation, like a rail or anything else, or what?
Unfortunately, so a circulation plan doesn't really look at traffic. Traffic may be a part of it, particularly if there's, a significant number of crashes or safety issues. But traffic is a regional issue, particularly like the 22 corridor is something that isn't just Bridgewater's a problem that Bridgewater creates. It's a regional stretch of state highway. So there really is. The master plan's intended to look at everything together. So how does the land use impact the other sections, and how do things like circulation, how can we provide alternatives? I do think that the circulation focused a lot more on other modes of transportation, so ways to interconnect things so that people don't hop in the car every single time. But when there's rush hour traffic, peak traffic, that's something that's really difficult to address in a master plan. That's probably something that maybe the state DOT will start looking at when they look at regional studies for roads like that. That's my opinion.
So there's sorry.
Oh, go ahead, go.
So basically, the municipality basically does the feedback to DOTs, or it comes other directions?
So normally a municipality, if there's an issue, if there's a major issue, you'll see municipalities reach out to DOT to
Right.
say, or the municipality will look at the most recent regional studies that were done on a certain roadway, and maybe make a recommendation. I'm working with the town up in Route 10, and they've basically begged the DOT for years now to look at Route 10. And so it wasn't until recently that they finally got feedback. The feedback loop finally worked out for them, and they're going to get something. So if there are, significant issues on any roadways that are particularly state or county controlled, then we should be reaching out to make something happen or move it in any way. But then there are also the realities that, traffic may not just be created by Bridgewater, and there are other groups
Yes.
that can be part of that.
I have one more question, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask your questions.
Okay. So you have, there are several optional sections there. So as Councilman Kars and Mayor said that, so basically we don't have to wait for 10 years, I guess. I mean, so if any of the optional sections become important to Bridgewater, so there will be an opportunity to basically include those as a, my point is that can we at least, make ourselves as a mandatory rather than optional as a rule?
So we are including them. Bridgewater is being proactive in that this document includes a number of optional elements that some other municipalities may not have. And in addition to obviously doing the mandatory ones, the housing element and fair share plan has been done, and this master plan covers that 10-year requirement for looking at the master plan. We can't make it mandatory. That obviously will change potentially by policy in the township of if they decide to continue doing these things, but this master plan includes those steps, includes those elements right now. They're just from a legal perspective, from the law, they're not required to do them, and Bridgewater has opted to do them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Just in comment, just a couple quick things. So when it comes to traffic, like if you look at page E3, there's a table that goes through all the different types of roads and the feeder roads. So to your question about traffic, there's kind of a couple different issues, right? You try to go across town at rush hour and you go into the Somerville Circle, that's the kind of, you're going to hit traffic. There's nothing you can do about it. It just is. And to the extent that there is anything that can be done, it is a state, federal revamping of that whole roadway. If you remember years ago, they actually extended the one, if you're going south and trying to go over the circle, they extended that, the acceleration lane and try to make it the line of sight a little bit better. They're now working at, you try to make the turn on First Avenue, it's in Raritan, but that always backs up if you try to make that jug handle turn to First Avenue. So those are issues that we are always, to the extent that we can't redo the Somerville Circle, but we can advocate to the various partners on issues there. What we can do, and what this plan does try to also incorporate, is recognizing that uses that are permitted may or may not have an impact on traffic. So you'll look at a road like Washington Valley Road. So, it's a certain type of road, and we know, okay, well, what development is going to be generally approved along that road, and what kind of traffic might that bring in? You look at the highways, right? So Route 22 is generally a place that development goes. It's generally a place that we want it. But you also want to look at, site-specific, what kind of use is going to be there, how intense it's going to be. Some of that gets picked up in the master plan. Some of that is obviously the things that the zoning board or planning board looks at when it's project-specific, that says, an office building is great theoretically, but it may have problems. Our biggest challenge is, certain stretches of roadway, which are, like, I was driving down, I had a couple mayors in town from out of state, and we were driving through town, and we went all the way up 202, 206 on Friday. And, you look at that section of quarter on 202, 206, from Pluckaman to the Somerville Circle, you have everything on there. Everything from literally single-family houses to major religious institutions to pharmaceutical companies to restaurants to car dealerships. I mean, you got everything on there. And as we all know, it's a one lane in each way road, but it's also a state highway. I mean, that section of roadway is probably the most challenging to figure out how do you handle, what do you want there? And, it's hard. Route 28 in certain areas is a tough area when you go through the whole stretch, all the way from, Findern all the way up through Branchburg, where you have that mixture of use, and you have the smaller businesses in Findern, but it's still business, but you still have houses. You get to some of the, those properties. So anyway, so my point is that some of this is you address by trying to look at what uses are permitted to the extent that you do what you can to eliminate the uses that we know might be problematic. And then when those uses come up, they're in front of the zoning board, but you try to catch as many as you can, at a macro level.
Mr. Chairman, just another quick perspective. I think that a way to address some of that, especially the safety component. I mean, you didn't specifically call out safety, but I think that's a component, is on individual applications. And, just I'll give two quick examples. I know we spent a substantial amount of time on the Chick-fil-A application, concerned about how we were going to get cars safely in and out of that property, how we were going to get people going onto 202 South, onto 202 North. So I think that typically the individual hearings address those. And then I'll give a zoning board example. I know there was extensive conversation about the proposed and ultimately approved Starbucks over on 22, I guess, near, was it Morgan? Yeah. And particularly the concerns about getting people off of that property and, doing a Jersey slide to get onto 22, onto 287. So, I think that's why we call upon our professionals. Oftentimes we ask applicants, to do their diligence in making sure that, we can get motorists on and off of property safely. So I think that's a big place where the responsibility lies.
Thank you, Councilman Kirsch. Any other comments from here at the dais?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Doyle, board members, members of the public. Very comprehensive document, of course, and much needed planning revision, given how much time has passed. Bottom line is that this is a tremendous amount of work has gone into this, the analysis and the recommendation. That being said, as we continue refining the Bridgewater Master Plan, I'd like to offer a few reflections from my review, particularly regarding the areas that may impact resident well-being and quality of life, as well as elements commonly addressed in other master plans. I haven't reviewed every single one, of course, as these are huge documents, but as this is a living, breathing document, we can always look to the future. So I'll start with either missing or underdeveloped areas, and of course take this with a grain of salt. One of the things that I was thinking about, we talked a lot about affordable mandates, and especially over the last couple of months. Housing diversity really should go beyond affordable mandates, and specifically, I think a proactive strategy for middle income, workforce, senior, and accessible housing, not just court-mandated affordable units. I think one of the things Bridgewater risks becoming economically exclusive and demographically stagnant. And one of the things I'm mentioning there is, if you take a look at our demographics, which I believe 30% of Bridgewater is over 55 years old, we need to have a proactive strategy that lifts and really is accepting across demographics. So that's one of the things that I think I would like to see, and as we look at the overall master plan. I think over the last couple of years for planning board, we look at ADA compliance and universal design principles, inclusive of infrastructure for residents with disabilities. I didn't see as much there. I think accessibility should be baked into all public spaces. Not treated as an afterthought. And I think that there was some mindfulness here, but I think as we again be proactive in the future, this is an area of an opportunity. One of the things that hits me, not only in Bridgewater but across our country here, is youth engagement and services. So, having a dedicated section for youth programming or teen spaces, educational partnerships beyond basic school facilities, I think is really a requirement for the mental health and stability of our young children. While we have the, right in our backyard here, Kid Street Play Park for young children, what does that look like for the younger adults? Where can they go, to hang out, which is safe, affordable, and allows for engagement, again, beyond school facilities. And I think we'd be remiss, if we didn't think about that in the future. Engaging your young residents builds long-term civic investment and addresses, like I said, mental health, recreation, and career readiness. We talked a little bit about aging. Aging in place strategy, I think, is something that is critical. Bridgewater's aging population needs more than just age-restricted housing. They need community integration and support. And I think I'm probably one of the younger folks in Bridgewater, but I do want to live here for a long time, and I'd probably want the planning board and the township to think about kind of what does aging in place look like. I don't want to be kicked out to Florida or anywhere else. Economic development vision was something that I was thinking about. So the plan refers to tax ratables and redevelopment, but I didn't really see much on small business incubation. And small business is the backbone of our country. Downtown revitalization, creative economy, or tech sector growth. We do have the Center of Excellence, of course, but what is really the long-term economic development? A thriving local economy depends more on warehouse controls and mall development, really. I think the other big, I played soccer when I was young, multiple sports. Obviously, we do have several areas that extend and lend themselves for these. The plan discusses parks and greenways, but lacks detail on programming like sports leagues, festivals, or intergenerational activities. And now I might be getting a little bit into the weeds, but I do think if this is going to be a guiding document for the future of our township, that we should be including some of those areas. And then I think I'll move on to kind of forward-thinking areas as, we think about the future, mental health, and especially if you look at like the last 24 to 48 hours, the shootings and people getting run down the road. Thinking about dedicated mental health facilities, community wellness hubs, and trauma-informed design principles, I think is really crucial. And we definitely need to be thinking about that for the future. Why it matters: rising rates of anxiety, depression, social isolation, people getting stuck in their houses, especially given some of the times that we've had to go through. I've been privy to some information, we all have as part of the planning board and approved, when you look at some of the cottages and some of the developments that we've approved over the years, it sometimes brings into, and I don't want to say, controlling the market, but some of these homes are, again, a little bit unattainable for middle-income housing, housing beyond we talked about the affordable mandates, and given, we're not going to restrict mega mansions to an extent as long as they fit within the criteria. But I think attainable market rate housing should be into consideration here. If you look at some of the national trends, they show a surge in demand for attainable housing, price for teachers, nurses, young professionals. And I think if we take a look at, what we've approved over the last couple, just over the last couple of years, some of these homes are going for $1.2, $1.5 million. And I don't see that really fitting middle-income housing. We talked about the youth-centrics. I'm not going to touch on that one again. I think smart mobility and microtransit, we're seeing these e-bikes, and I know I saw something from the Bridgewater Police Department come out, just the other day. It's only going to get, become more, it's only going to become, more commonplace for these e-bikes. And I think even looking at some of these rideshare hubs, we need to think about the future in terms of, these potential Tesla taxis and whatnot that are going to be, Waymo is eventually going to get to us. It's not just meant for the cities. So as car ownership declines among younger generations, mobility equity becomes essential. And I think that's something that we do need to take into consideration. Right now, you have to go, and I'm not 100% an expert, but you have to, if you want to go into the city, you go to either park your car at the mall and then take the bus, or you go to Raritan, take the train, and go to North Branch. I think there's a couple of areas. But I think one of the things that we should be considering is real-time transit data and, having some microtransits for our citizens. And then just the one last item here, I think as it relates to, creative placemaking and cultural equity, I didn't really see too much there. I know most of the master plans that I've seen don't really have this, but, I'm a big believer in the creative arts, and I think it does, spark interest beyond just, typical what you're learning in school. And I think these efforts build identity, attract tourism, and foster belonging. So maybe something around public art initiatives, cultural districts. I know Bridgewater has a tremendous amount of history. But how can we support local artists and storytellers? What does that look like? That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banga.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick thoughts. Some of those ideas I really, really like. I think some of the ideas are some of the things are probably addressed but buried within the document. But I think looking at the future, pulling some of them out, because if you're a business that's looking to move in, let's say you're a small business, and we have a section called small business section, to the extent it's not there now, even if some of the elements are already located within it, pulling those aside just makes it more. It's to your point about it says it was small business, using that as an example, but it says, hey, come here and we have specific kind of dedicated thought to you. So I really like some of those categories and taking a look at if it's stuff that's there and it's organized in a certain way. I think that's really good. If there's things that aren't there that can be, a couple of things you mentioned, which I want to just point out specifically, is the e-bikes are a big issue. I expect that at some point in time over the next year or two, as the state kind of grapples with the laws of e-bikes and who can ride them and when you can ride them, and there's enforcement issues and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if we have to come back and potentially, as they become more popular, address that as a specific element of a circulation plan or even road design, because you have these people zipping around on these bikes, which are basically motorcycles. Yep. At some of the speeds they go. I think that's something that we're going to see evolve along with, some of these, the various, driverless cars and everything else in terms of how that impacts. I think those are kind of things that are probably on the horizon that we'll see. The creative placemaking is one you mentioned at the end that I, really like, is because, most of you know my wife's an art teacher, but she's very into that subject matter. So we go to lots of murals, we see lots of murals and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see about, we have a creative arts committee, which hasn't been super active over the past couple years, but, seeing if they have some suggestions too in the future about revisions on, adding in an element that talks about like, hey, if you want to put a mural on a wall, where do we want to encourage you to do that? Or where don't we? I mean, some of these murals can look very nice if they're on a wall done by a professional artist. And some of them look less nice, and so and I know not just public art's not just murals, but, to what extent do you do that? I really like those thoughts. So, definitely I think we should take them in consideration for, updating, adding, amending. I think those are really good ideas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks again for all the hard work to all of our professionals as well as the board members. Really comprehensive document. Those are just, a couple things that I think we could benefit in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you mind if I respond?
Please.
I think a lot of those recommendations are very useful. I think they're very topical and good to include. I will agree with the mayor that there are some of those things that are buried in here, for lack of a better word, but there are some recommendations about active adult communities as a senior housing option and including those uses. There are some recommendations about making the predictability for businesses better for so knowing what they're walking into rather than some of the unpredictability that can come with land use. There is a recommendation specifically about community neighborhoods and doing a separate element, and I think that'd be a great place for creative placemaking and cultural equity to include specifically which neighborhoods would have a strong history and would benefit, or have specific locations where that would be great. Let's say like the Martinsville neighborhood could focus on something, and that's just one of many. But so I think that this master plan might not touch on them directly, but there are recommendations about doing future analyses, doing future elements. It's not, some of them aren't cut dry, change the ordinance to be this. They're do an analysis because I think the township could benefit from it. So I think what you're saying is something we should keep in mind as we do pursue some of those analyses. I think it's going to be really helpful to incorporating that information. I will also just note one thing. Bridgewater has been, with affordable housing, Bridgewater has been proactive. Bridgewater has met its obligations from the legal perspective. But Bridgewater, beyond that, has a incredible variety of housing, of different types of housing, from condos, apartments, rental, for sale, single-family homes, McMansions, small Cape Cods, et cetera. So there's a variety of housing stock in Bridgewater, and the affordable housing regulations actually are for workforce housing. They don't call it that. It's not Section 8 housing, it's not voucher housing, it's actually middle-income housing, and for the most part, it's based off of the area median income, and in most cases, it's under just someone who's under 80% of that. So these are teachers, firefighters, police officers, single parents, things like that are benefiting from that affordable housing, and that Bridgewater up to date has been so proactive that we haven't had a tremendous, there's been an impact in that it's a requirement, but we've also garnered credits from the fact that we have had such a variety of stock. And some of the new housing, we can't control the market. The township can't control it, none of us can. And in the last 5 years, the change to the housing market has dramatically changed what affordability looks like in certain housing types specifically. Townhouses used to be starter homes. Now they're like forever homes for some incomes. And so we can't control that, but we need to be mindful of the products, the housing products, and different variety of housing that we can continue to look at to make it a viable option for middle income and low income people who aren't relying upon affordable housing, but are looking just for other options.
Could we put data up online? I don't want to get too far afield on this, but thinking about information and packaging, packaging information that we have, right? Because the reality is that most people are not reading this document, right? You're probably not going through unless you're a land use attorney coming before a board on a specific application, or a very, very dedicated resident, who's going to read every page. It's not going to happen, but there's information on there. So in other words, can we look at making sure that information's on the website as an example? If we talk about, it's usually housing stock as an example. There might be data that we can at some point make, digestible on the website. So if somebody is looking at Bridgewater, somebody is looking to where they want to move here, is there data that we can put together in a way that is understandable to the public about, a question like Andy's mentioning about, I want to move to Bridgewater, but I want to know that I can stay here and live my whole life. Well, how would an average member of the public figure out what the housing stock looks like in Bridgewater, right? I mean, you can pull this document and try to analyze it, but maybe there's some data that we could put out there that's easy to say, hey, if you want to live in Bridgewater, we have you can live here from 22 to 92 because, hey, this is the stock of housing we have that is actually affordable, affordable in the sense of it's part of the program, but, it's also, here are the kind of options you have in different neighborhoods or towns. I don't know what that looks like, but just saying there's information we have out there. When you talk about, there's been a lot of recent projects for trying to, in our affordable housing plan, supporting, development of disabled individuals, things like that. To what extent would, some of the information be available? Maybe not specific locations, but something that we can make the information more digestible in a public-facing way. About just, again, some of the stuff. Those are a couple of examples. There may be other ones to think about in terms of what's there versus, again, making it not this. So maybe just some food for thought on
I
that.
think there are certain other topic areas too that would benefit from maybe like some infographics that are more digestible.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In terms of the public, if you're looking to move here, you're a resident, you're trying to figure out what are some of the things, and some of it may not be conducive to it, exactly, but, I like putting some of that stuff together.
We'll look into it.
Thank you.
Mayor Mensch.
Mr. Chairman, just a very brief comment. So first of all, Mr. Banga, thank you so much for that very comprehensive set of comments. But as we're speaking here about diversity of housing stock, and I don't have statistics in front of me, but I believe that if there was a measure of diversity of housing stock, we would rank quite high on it, because as you pointed out, we have apartments and townhouses, rent, non-rent, smaller homes that, I hope my number would be right, maybe could be had in the maybe 300,000s range all the way up to, 2 million and more. And there's a lot in that middle. It's not just there's some houses at 350 and then there's some houses at 2 million. There's legitimately neighborhoods and sizable numbers of opportunities in the middle. So, I think through good planning over the years, I think we have achieved a remarkable amount of economic diversity. I think it is incumbent upon us as a planning board, the town council, the zoning board, our professionals, to make sure that's the case. But I believe we start from a fairly strong point, but certainly you need to be diligent to make sure we do not have gaps within that economic spectrum.
Yeah, if I may, just to Councilman Kirsch, I appreciate the comment, and I'm not disagreeing that we have housing diversity. I'm saying we need to be thoughtful in the approach moving forward, right? It's the strategy, it's the proactive strategy thereafterwards. We are starting from a very strong point. I 100% agree with you there, but I think the one thing that I was missing was what beyond affordable. What does the future look like? Right, and I didn't see that specifically, or maybe it was underrepresented.
Yeah,
So,
one of the issues, Indy, to your point, like that we've challenged with is senior housing that's not, we're not talking about going to a nursing home senior housing, but that I hear that a lot. The number one thing I hear from people and residents that when they talk about the stuff they want when it comes to housing is senior oriented housing, whether it's 55, age restricted, whether it's single-family owned units, because a lot of people I know, they can't afford the Four Seasons, there, and so they're moving to places like Somerset Run or places in Franklin where they have these, larger senior,
communities.
elements that,
Yeah.
and we don't have the space for something as large as like a Somerset Run or something like that. We wouldn't want it, but. So we've been trying to look at, in certain instances, where can we put that? I think your point about being proactive, that's one area of housing that we need to make sure we focus on. One of the concerns, unfortunately, the state did it in the past, which always makes me a little nervous, was at one point in time, I think Corzine did it, where they said, okay, it's age restricted. So you pass something, I think it's age restricted, and then by state law, the governor came back and said, we're going to actually, by state law, remove all those restrictions. So you thought you were approving a development that was 55 and up or 65 and up, and you did your calculations based off of the expectation that these are going to be empty nesters, active adults, and all of a sudden the state comes in and says, yeah, we need more housing, so we're going to just, wipe that away. But I think that's right, though, because we have an aging population. A lot of them are moving to, a lot of people are going to Florida or North Carolina. That's out of my control in terms of the taxation or the lack of income tax in some of those states. But making sure that we're looking at that population and where they go.
Yep.
I think there's more entry level than senior level.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Banga.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes,
make
please,
a
Mr.
comment.
Atkins.
Ms. Sarmed brought up the topic of the neighborhoods element, which I'd like to touch on. But first, I'd just like to commend our administration, Ms. Doyle, our mayor, and all the contributors who poured a lot of time and energy and resources into creating this document and really outlining the future for our town. Bridgewater is a beautiful place, and anybody who helps make sure that stays true has some of my deepest appreciation. But starting with the neighborhoods element, I'm very excited to see this in the document, specifically about the idea of the design of an area. And so I'm thinking about Martinsville specifically. Currently, there are a lot of buildings. They're detached. You have many different parking lots. It's not a walkable area. It doesn't have that kind of village charm that somewhere like Basking Ridge has. But Basking Ridge used to be exactly like Martinsville. That South Finley Ave area went through a beautification, and they put a lot of effort in to unify design, to create a real sense of community, to help build community character. So I'm very excited to see that this is a topic in the master plan. More on that point, I like the emphasis on more trees and walkable environment in Findren, the goals for more bikeways, blueways, pedestrian paths, and recreation and alternative transportation. And yeah, I think that mostly sums up my comments. I may have a few questions on those, but generally just thank you to everybody who made this possible.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Ms. Sarmed, earlier you brought up that many eyes have seen this document and helped on the creation of this document. So obviously I do want to thank, on behalf of the board as well, here in 2025, I do want to thank the ad hoc committee for contributing to this. I do want to thank the former members of the ad hoc committee, namely Lauren Zarrow, as well as our current zoning board chair, Jeff Foose, as well, who was also in the ad hoc committee at one point. And thank you to the administration and Mayor Mensch as well for giving us the opportunity to weigh in. Obviously, this is the document that guides our principles here at the planning board. But I think most of all, I'd like to thank the members of the public, who many of which are not here this evening, for attending the public input workshops. And I saved these flyers because I remember thinking to myself, the level of engagement was really high, and it was clear that something very special was going on, something that had generated interest, but it was clear that something had not been done in a while. So when I saw that the level of commentary and the level of ideas that were just being floated around, it was really, I was humbled by it, and a lot of those things made it into the plan. Some of them maybe, they'll be in the plan one day, but. So more than anything, I think it's very important to acknowledge our members of the public for having contributed to this document. I'm thinking also down to the neighborhood plans that Mr. Atkins was just speaking about right now. One of the things I was most excited about were, obviously defining the 5 principal areas of Bridgewater. Everybody has this idea that Bridgewater just expands, right, when they come into the neighborhood. But no, there are 5 distinct neighborhoods here. And, Martinsville being one, but then you also have in the plan the Finder neighborhood plan. So the idea of making that a little bit more safe and walkable, safety always came to mind whenever we looked at this document. Safety of Bridgewater, the safety of its residents and of its future housing. So that's something I really just wanted to speak to as well. And I could say thank you in so many ways, but, honestly, when I think about what was put into this, the time and effort, and the component of safety, and, it was very well measured, well thought out, based on the public input, as well as the professional planning, considering both today's landscape, as well as the challenges of the foreseeable future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will say, before I started working in Bridgewater, even though I live right next door, everyone says, oh, the Bradley Gardens neighborhood. I had no idea what they were talking about when I first started working here. And it's part of the language, it's part of the fabric, it's part of the recognition of Bridgewater. And now I'm very familiar with them, having been here for a year and a half. But initially I was a little caught off guard that I wasn't speaking the same language. And it's really, really something that I think is critical to understanding Bridgewater. So it's got a good place in this plan.
Mr. Chair, just a question off of that. Maybe a question for our professionals. On that topic, there was mentioned in the document about a committee or an effort to help clarify neighborhood boundaries. Do you have anything that you could share on that?
Yes.
How that would look, or, yep.
Yeah, some of these ideas are, you don't want to go too far in a master plan to say, let's do this, or, specifically make an ordinance change or anything. So that, the genesis of that is really, it's an idea. It's an idea to get things rolling. Obviously, something with the neighborhoods wouldn't be just, it wouldn't do it justice to just have one person or one staff member or one consultant working on it. So the idea is really to have, committees, or just one committee or several committees that could make up that to really do justice for the neighborhoods and have a real comprehensive look at them.
One of the things with the neighborhoods I know we looked at years ago, both pros and cons, was, some areas of town are clearly defined. But where some of those boundaries are not so defined, and depending on if you live in one of those areas, you might have very strong feelings about being in or being out. And there was a lot of debate, this could go back 10 years ago, but about, fostering, some of these different neighborhoods are part of the character of Bridgewater, but also not taking away from the idea that it is one town. So it's not, again, embracing our uniqueness in terms of those areas, but not all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm not in this area and I wanted to be. Or, people ask me all the time, would you live in Martinsville? I'm like, well, not really. I don't consider Martinsville, but I'm covered by the Martinsville, rescue squad. But, at the same time, if you want to sell your house and you listed in Martinsville, that's probably a little bit of a bump on it. So I'm sure a lot of people would want to be, where you are. So I think there's a lot we can do. There's also grants and things like that too. Sometimes that if you apply for certain neighborhood revitalization type grants, you can get money from the state or different organizations. And if you have a defined area, or at least a roughly defined area, you can, apply to say using, like a Findern as an example. Years ago, there was some money for a Findern beautification type of thing. And you could try to provide money for either our planners to go in and give guidance where you say, hey, if you're going to build on, if you're a business, here's some proposed, not required necessarily, but suggested, I do color schemes or architecture or just things that we can actually just do, sidewalks or things like that. So I think there's a lot we can do with it. But you'd be surprised if you really try to do those fine lines. You'll know it if you want to be in or out of a particular area, and if you live on that border, they'll be here to tell you what they think of, where they think the border is of whatever area they're in.
Well, thank you for your comments. That's really funny because some of these boundaries really depend on who you ask. If you look at the census block groups, Martinsville extends all the way to Sunset Lake, but if you look at our zip code, obviously that's not true.
Growing up, I had my friends, they lived in Bradley Gardens. They're very proud to be from Bradley Gardens. And they'd say, you live up on the mountain. Well, what mountain? What do you mean? On a mountain? I'm on a mountain. But, they knew, I was on the mountain, and they were very proud to be from Bradley Gardens. Anyway. Chairman, do we need to open up to the public?
Yes, do any of our professionals have any comments? Very good.
I think I've spoken enough, but if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, obviously.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add a few comments, please?
Let's do one last comment. We'll open up to the public. Sure.
Okay. First of all, I actually, really like Mr. Banger's detailed comments. That actually triggered me some of the questions and comment from myself. So one is that obviously we have got a great youth here, right in the high school here. As you need, if you have children like a teenager or so, they are aesthetically smart people nowadays. I mean, they know all the planning and finance and everything else very well. So on the question of youth engagement, we might actually have some, talk to the principal or so and see what they think about, what needs to be done for Bridgewater. They may actually come back to settle down in Bridgewater after their education or so. That's one thing. Second thing is on the smart homes. Today I saw actually a smart home developed, which is hardly like a box, but you can actually reduce the at least almost 40% of the size of current home, where we live in, and live much more comfortably because of all this way that smart homes are designed. So when we do any other home development or so, suppose housing development or housing diversity, so we may actually consider that one. This will be a life-changing opportunity for people who want to live nicely as well as in a very limited space. Same thing goes for smart highways. Detroit and Kansas City actually has been planning for a long time now for a smart way. They basically pick only small section of it and how to accommodate, all types of transportations, including obviously disability folks and all this. So I can think about that one. These are all done in many places, but obviously has not been implemented yet, but at least they are planning. It's actually integral part of the planning there. Fourth issue is that I think Bridgewater, like any other places, has been changing demographically a lot. So when we make any future plan, kindly think about the demographic changes of the townships. We already have a lot of changes now from 1990, the first master plan. Now you actually know very well on this all 25, 30 years, there are lots of changes on demographic side. So that will actually impact people, what type of the housing they like or including the income success. So those variables should be included in the future planning or at least for housing diversity side or way we live. So those are the 4 points I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public that wish to question or comment this evening's hearing. Yes, please.
John Kulak, 13 Ramsey Street in Bridgewater. I was also a member of the ad hoc committee, and I want to applaud all the other ad hoc committee members for their work, their dedication, the many hours. And in many ways, it was tedious work, but in other ways, we really put together, I think, a plan that is flexible, that starts with the vision that talks about the safety of the public and provides for a quality of life that we have enjoyed and would like to continue to enjoy. And I wanted to take a moment to both acknowledge the leadership of Mayor Mensch, whose vision it was to have this review, to put forth a comprehensive master plan, and to provide a process by which there would be input from the public, from the professionals, from the board members, from the ad hoc committee, from the administration, and Mr. Pappas has played a very active role in managing this process as well. So there's a lot of both credit to go around, and at the same time, it's an acknowledgement of the leadership that the mayor had shown in just taking this effort on. When I look at the master plan in its current iteration, what I see is one that is built on that vision statement, that provides for the flexibility to do all of the things that both Mr. Banga and Mr. Chowdhury had mentioned, addresses some of the ideas that it put forth in terms of diversity and also how you can look at a township and build into it a plan to allow for as many kinds of housing as exists today and may exist in the future. But I think you'll find we also reside in a much larger political entity, the state of New Jersey, the county of Somerset, and those too impose regulations and laws that somewhat restrict now what we can do and what we can't do. Economic forces will always prevail within the context of the master plan you set. And those things are what we enjoy about Bridgewater. So thank you for everyone for all your hard work. Thank you to Scarlett for both the institutional knowledge and the work that she's done, to Catherine for the work that she's done in picking up this gargantuan task and putting it on her shoulders, and to the board for your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kula.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Franco again. I want to thank Scarlett and Catherine for their putting together such a intensive document, 424 pages. I figured out right away not to just hit print, but it's very in-depth, and I truly appreciate that. I want to thank Mr. Banga. Your comments show that you thoroughly reviewed this document, and your comments were very insightful and very much on target with a lot of things that I feel about what we need as we look forward in this town and in the master planning for this town. So thank you for that. I did have a few questions just about the process. And so tonight, if you say you have this master plan and you give it your seal of approval, how does that work forward with both the planning and the zoning board? Because I noticed within the document there were sections that there was cross out and underlines for changes. Do those have to go through ordinance changes? And then there were a lot of the planning board should. So, what happens from here?
Yep, so as I mentioned before, this is just a planning document, a policy guide. The township council could decide not to implement any of these, or they can implement all of them, or they could implement them in a way that prioritize certain things over other things. Some of these changes specifically to maybe the function of the ordinance might end up in an omnibus ordinance, meaning that they can all get adopted even though they're in different topic areas. Some of the recommendations about how the planning board should do things are more short about enforcement, maybe of existing ordinances. What you're referring to with the crossout, that was supposed to be demonstrative of like an existing ordinance, but what we would change about it, what would be recommended to change to fit that specific scenario. But as far as everything else, any of these recommendations, none of them are codified yet, and that's still another step in the process. So as I mentioned before, the town council now has this as a policy guide to very specific recommendations and very general recommendations, including some things like conducting an analysis, setting up a committee, et cetera. So they'll be prioritized as you move forward. This will not codify anything. This is just a policy document.
Okay, that's sort of what I thought, but I just wanted to be sure.
The only thing to add to that, though, is that if you're an applicant coming in front of the zoning board or planning board, and especially zoning board, where you have to show, well, for both really, but that your proposal or your site plan is consistent with the master plan, that will take place right now because the master plan sets forth certain goals or things. So you have to show well, the township master plan has a goal of improving transportation, whatever it is.
More daylilies on the side.
Right. So that part goes into effect as soon as the planning board approves it, because it's a planning document. But yes, the other recommendations may require more action for the council.
Okay.
Yeah, those goals and objectives, and thank you for clarifying that, Mayor. Those goals and objectives, those guiding principles, those are all, if this board adopts this, it would be active from here on out. And any board application, any planner would have to review their application against this document and those guiding principles and objectives and everything.
Okay, great, thank you. I did notice that in here, on page C22, we talk about the RSEED redevelopment, special economic employment district. I think that's the Sanofi project, is that correct? With the Sanofi Center of Excellence, Petersbrook, whatever?
Yes.
Okay. But we don't really identify within this document the three newest areas in need of redevelopment, correct?
No, we did not.
Okay, all right. I just checking. It's a big document. I didn't know if I missed it somewhere.
No, that's a good catch.
Okay. Trying not to go with all my tabs, but I really liked the checklist requirements on page C29 to update the variance application. I really thought that those were great. And I had never seen the Finder neighborhood study. So if it was placed in the planning division section on the township website, Yeah, no, I know, no, but I'm saying it's in the master
in the
plan,
master plan now.
but I had never even been aware that that document had existed previously. So I think if based on your recommendation, that it be put on the website, I think that's awesome. On C30, number 12, it talks about the parking lot, southwesterly quadrant, Route 22 and Milltown Road, for some meaningful use. Was that that was the parking lot that we said wasn't going to be a parking lot anymore,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
But somewhere in the transportation plan, we talk about looking for ways to develop areas, so maybe it could become I'm just.
Yeah, the problem with that lot is that, it was supposed to be a park and ride, but there wasn't demand for, even pre-COVID, there was no demand for the park and ride, so we couldn't get a bus service
To stop there.
come in. So now we're kind of at a place where we're saying, well, what do you do with it? It's an underutilized parking lot. So that's where that kind of comes into like, we're not sure what to do with it, but
I just wanted to be sure
Yeah,
that was the parking lot that became the.
that's exactly what we're thinking of. Yep.
All right. Okay. I know we talk about, it talked about page C31, number 16, and I didn't understand this. The township should review the zoning map to indicate split lot zoning in Martinsville to better show the difference between the property line and the zone line. And I didn't know what that meant,
So the-
because I've lived and worked in that area for.
Yeah, it's no problem. So oftentimes, the way the zoning map is formatted, the actual zone boundary may line up or it may cross over to a property line, for specifically Martinsville with smaller property lines. It's unclear on the zoning map of some places if it's the property line or the zone line, if it's split between two zones or not.
So if it's like actually a residential or if it's in that mixed-use commercial type thing.
Correct. So it's just a clarification to make sure the zoning map is crisp and clear about
Okay.
where properties lie.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank
Catherine,
you
is
for
that for lots that the entire lot is within one zone, but we're not entirely positive to which it is, as opposed to a lot being in two zones?
Correct. It's a little bit of both. It's to make
Okay.
sure that there's not split lot zoning where it's not supposed to be split lot zoning, or if it is split lot zoning, to clearly demarcate that it's one property or that it's one zone.
Right, because if you owned a piece of property that was in, say, the residential zone that abuts whatever the Martinsville commercial zone is, and the same person bought both lots, they could be combined in one lot, except half their property is zoned as commercial and half their property is zoned as residential. And then they obviously have a problem from zoning and may not even know it, or we may not know it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. On C32, it talked about B1, R50 zone accessory uses should be amended to delete the section which refers to accessory apartments. And item 2, which talked about, I think it's two-family homes. My only question or my only comment on that is, as people age, and as we look at more multi-generational families and more individuals wanting to have those options available to themselves, is that something that we really want to say you can't have an accessory structure to have an in-law, to have your in-laws move onto your property if you've got an acre and a half of land? So it's just my comment, my concern, same thing with, taking away the two-family house. For some multi-generational families, that provides the perfect opportunity. I've had family members where, they built, the en-suites or they've lived in the two-family house and taken care of them until the time of their death. So, it has worked for
And we may look at it again in the future. There was some legislation being proposed on the topic. One of the problems is that we don't have clear kind of standards as to if you're going to do it. And the reality is that when it works the way you're talking about it, it's great. Or at least great. At least it makes sense potentially. The problem is you have people who then say, great, I can now Airbnb my apartment. They're now creating income properties, and that's obviously not the intent.
It's not the idea of the granny shack that was
Right.
concept
So
of
I
it,
think what we wanted to do is remove it all for now. We may look at it as some of the legislation evolves, as we're looking for other ways of finding affordable housing. Because I would tell you, if I could put more affordable housing and have that qualify in some instances, I'd rather do that necessarily than build new units. But what I can't do is still have to build new units and now have people doing Airbnb lots and come stay in my single-family apartment, or they're renting it for profit, and they're now popping up all over. It's a challenge, though.
I
but
appreciate that, you got to watch both sides. It's just
Yeah,
something
it's
to
a challenge
consider.
on that.
If we want our residents, if I want to stay in town, but I don't want to share the entire household with my daughter, and her family. I want my own separate space, but want to be close enough, type of thing. On C36, we talk about active adult communities, and what was my point there? We talked about Route 28, Martinsville, Findorn, and Raritan Valley Golf Course. I didn't know that was an option. But if we're thinking Raritan Valley Golf Course, I'm hoping we're also thinking Ethicon as an opportunity for affordable senior housing, as, if we're looking out that way. Don't worry, I don't have many more tabs here. And I think I'm the only other public speaker, so.
We have too many in public tonight, so.
And Mrs. Franco, although I do occasionally give you a hard time, you do actually read all the documents. If you have comments, please send them over, because you very well may pick up on something that we just.
I didn't go into the typos because I knew Catherine would catch them herself, so.
But if you have them, though, send them over, because I do know that you do read all this stuff, and don't. If I like it, we'll take it. If we don't, we'll ignore it, and you'll yell at me at a council meeting. But send it over.
Okay. I like this on C38, on number 4, the idea of thinking about exceptions for emergency generators, but understanding the noise situation, because I know even on my property, we're looking at where do we put an emergency generator that we're not too close to the side yards or frontage or wherever, and still does what we need to do. So I think that's important.
And that obviously, this isn't an ordinance yet, it's not
Yeah.
codified, but that consideration for, potential screening, noise attenuation, all of that could be included in that as a condition or a design standard related to it, for part of the benefit of it.
I'm glad you snuck in something about short-term rentals on C40 and 9 that you need to consider and continue to look at that, because I know that was something that came up before council and then sort of fell off the map because I guess it became a non-issue, thank goodness.
That one's another one that's so tricky to figure out, these short-term rentals. We thought we were going to be able to legislate it at one point, and it became a morass of problems.
There's
So
lawsuits in other municipalities right now that are dealing with it.
it's still an issue.
Yeah.
There's no clear answer there.
Yeah.
And that's all of my blue tabs for you tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your hard work. I know many of you were just volunteers, and I give you a lot of credit, and I thank you for your time and your energy and your dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franco. Thank you. That'll close the public portion for comments. Any other questions?
No, but if you're looking for a motion, I will make it whenever you're ready.
Looking for the motion to adopt the Township of Bridgewater Master Plan dated 9/18/25.
I'll second that. Oh.
And Mrs. Franco will give you any that you missed. So check in with her for the errata sheet.
Thank you.
Motion.
Mayor Mensch,
I'll second.
that's Ms. Sikora. I'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Chowdhury? Mr. Banga?
Yes.
Ms. Sikora?
Yes.
Mr. Wang?
Yes.
Mr. Magora?
Yes.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Councilman Kirsch?
Yes.
Mayor Mensch?
Yes.
And Chairman Vesio.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I think we will continue to keep, as we look at the implementation phase and continuing review of the master plan, we will continue to engage the board to make sure that the recommendations don't just die on the vine. They're in here and they're great, and then nothing happens with it. So we'll be having more information in terms of moving that process forward, so we make sure that they get to fruition, and that some of these other things are explored. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Probst, could we discuss the calendar coming up? I believe we have a meeting next week on Tuesday.
Yeah, October 7th, we have a meeting. The Stavola Quarry will be coming in for a presentation. That's the only matter that evening. And October 21st, the Clubhouse of New Jersey, Not Just Golf, will be coming in. That's the property at the Safavie current furniture store before the Honda on Route 22 West. And that's the only application that evening right now for the 21st.
Okay, so that's on 10/21, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Very good. Any other comments or questions? With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
That's Ms. Sikora. A second, please. That's Mr. Magura. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh,